If you're over 60 and you've flown recently, something probably felt off. The seat felt tighter. Your knees pressed harder into the row in front. And maybe you told yourself you were imagining it. You weren't. Your seat actually got smaller. And here's the part that should make you angry. The airline never told you. Right now, in 2026, airlines across the world are running something called cabin densification programs. That's the industry's polite way of saying they're ripping out your old seats and replacing them with thinner ones so they can cram an extra row into the same airplane. They don't send you an email about it. They don't update the booking page. You just show up, sit down, and wonder why your shoulders are touching the stranger next to you. Let me give you the numbers because they tell a story airlines don't want you to hear. Back in the 1980s, the standard distance between your seat and the one in front of you was about 35 inches. Today on major carriers like American, Delta, and United, that number has dropped to 30 or 31 inches. On budget airlines like Spirit and Frontier, you're looking at just 28 inches. That's 7 inches of legroom that vanished over 4 decades. And they took it so gradually you barely noticed. The seat itself got narrower too. What used to be 18.5 inches across is now as little as 17 inches on some jets. That's less space than a standard office chair. And those numbers aren't just about comfort. For travelers over 60, they create a real and serious health risk that most people have never heard of. Later in this video, we're going to reveal exactly what that risk is and why it gets more dangerous the smaller your seat gets, especially as you get older. But first, tap that like button and hit subscribe so you never miss another video designed to protect senior travelers. Now let me show you exactly what airlines are doing behind the scenes and why 2026 is the year it got worse. So, what exactly is happening inside that plane before you ever step on board? Airlines are quietly retrofitting their cabins with what the industry calls slimline seats. These are seats with thinner cushioning, less padding in the backrest, and reduced or completely eliminated recline. They look almost the same from the outside, but they take up less space from front to back. And that's the whole point, because when you shave even 2 inches off each row, you free up enough room to squeeze in one more row of seats. On a typical narrow body jet, that's 6 extra passengers per flight. Now multiply that by an average ticket price of $300, then multiply it by 3 flights a day, then multiply it across an entire year. That single extra row generates close to $2 million annually per aircraft. When you understand the math, you understand why every major airline in the world is doing this. But not every airline gets away with it. In January 2026, the Canadian carrier WestJet tried to push the limits. They took their Boeing 737 fleet and shrank the seat pitch from 30 inches down to 28. The passenger backlash was so severe and so immediate that WestJet reversed the entire program. They pulled the reconfigured planes and announced they would return to the original spacing. Think about what that tells you. The airline knew 28 inches was uncomfortable. Their own customers told them it was unacceptable. And yet dozens of other carriers around the world are still flying those exact same dimensions right now without saying a word. In the United States, the gap between the best and the worst is striking. JetBlue and Southwest generally offer the most generous legroom in standard economy, often 32 inches or more. Delta tends to sit at the higher end among the big three, usually between 30 and 32 inches depending on the aircraft. American and United hover around 30 to 31, and then there are the ultra-low-cost carriers operating at 28 inches where your kneecaps become part of the seat in front of you. So that's the landscape. But here's what nobody tells you about why shrinking seats hit seniors harder than anyone else on that plane. Here's the truth most airlines will never say out loud. A shrinking seat doesn't affect every passenger the same way. If you're 25 and flexible, a tight seat is annoying. If you're over 60, it can be painful within the first hour. As we age, our joints get stiffer. Our hips lose range of motion. Our backs need more support, not less. And those new slimline seats with their thin padding and rigid frames offer almost no cushion between your body and the hard shell underneath. Now think about the width. At just 17 inches across, many economy seats are narrower than the shoulders of an average adult. For seniors with broader hips or anyone who uses a cane or walker and needs a little extra room to settle in, that space isn't just tight, it's a barrier. You're not sitting in the seat, you're wedged into it. And for years, there was at least one airline that understood this. Southwest built its reputation as the most welcoming carrier for passengers who needed a little more room. Their customer of size policy let travelers book a second seat and get a refund if the plane had empty seats. It was simple, fair, and it gave people dignity. That's gone now. Starting in January 2026, Southwest moved to assigned seating and ended automatic refunds for extra seat purchases. The airline that was once a safe choice for seniors and larger passengers now works just like everyone else. Your options just got smaller along with your seat. But here's something even more troubling. The government agency responsible for keeping you safe in the air, the FAA, tested whether current seat sizes allow passengers to evacuate a plane within 90 seconds during an emergency. Sounds reasonable, except every single person in those tests was an able-bodied adult under the age of 65. They didn't include seniors, they didn't include children, they didn't include anyone with a disability. And based on those results, the FAA declared current seat sizes safe. Safe for whom exactly? But discomfort and unfair testing aren't the real danger here. What happens inside your body when you're trapped in a cramped seat for hours is far more serious than most people realize. This is the part of the video we teased at the beginning, and it's the one thing your airline will never bring up. It's called deep vein thrombosis, or DVT. Here's what happens. When you sit in a cramped position for a long time with your knees bent and your legs pressed against the seat in front of you, blood starts to pool in your lower legs. Your calf muscles aren't contracting because there's no room to move. Without that movement, the blood slows down. And when blood slows down, it can clot. That clot usually forms deep in the veins of your leg. Sometimes it dissolves on its own and you never know it was there. But sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes that clot breaks free, travels through your bloodstream, and reaches your lungs. That's called a pulmonary embolism, and it can kill you. The CDC lists prolonged sitting during air travel as a known risk factor for DVT. About 1 in every 6,000 passengers on flights lasting more than 4 hours develops a blood clot. And the risk climbs sharply on flights over 8 hours, especially when other factors are involved. Now here's why this matters so much if you're over 60. The Mayo Clinic identifies age above 60 as a standalone risk factor for DVT. Your veins lose elasticity as you get older, blood flow naturally slows, and many seniors already live with conditions that raise the risk even further. Heart disease, reduced mobility, medications that affect clotting, a history of surgery. Stack any of those on top of a cramped seat with 28 inches of leg room on an 8-hour flight, and you're not just uncomfortable. You're in a situation that your body may not handle the way it once did. The dry, recirculated air in the cabin makes it worse because it dehydrates you, which thickens the blood and makes clotting more likely. None of this is secret medical knowledge. It's published by the CDC, the Mayo Clinic, and the American Society of Hematology. But your airline will never mention it, because acknowledging the risk would mean admitting the seats are too small. So what can you actually do about it? Quite a lot, as it turns out. Now that you know the risk, let's talk about what you can do to protect yourself. These are 5 simple steps that can make a real difference, and most of them cost you nothing. First, when you check in for your flight, walk up to the counter and say this: "I'm over 60 and I'm concerned about circulation on this flight. Are there any aisle or bulkhead seats available?" Aisle seats let you get up and walk without climbing over anyone. Bulkhead seats give you extra leg room because there's no row in front of you. Airline staff have the ability to reassign seats, and a polite request with a clear reason gets results more often than you'd think. Second, before your trip, ask your doctor about graduated compression stockings. These aren't the thick, ugly ones your grandmother wore. Modern compression stockings are lightweight and comfortable, and they work. A major review of 9 clinical trials found that wearing them on flight significantly reduced the risk of blood clots. They're inexpensive, they're available at any pharmacy, and they could save your life on a long flight. Third, check your airline seat pitch before you book. Not after, before. 2 inches might not sound like much, but it's the difference between your knees touching the seat in front of you and actually being able to shift your legs. JetBlue and Southwest typically offer the most room in standard economy. Spirit and Frontier offer the least. A quick search before you buy your ticket is the easiest upgrade you'll ever make. Fourth, set a timer on your phone for every 2 hours during the flight. When it goes off, stand up, walk the aisle, roll your ankles, flex your calves. The CDC recommends moving every 2 to 3 hours on any flight over 4 hours. Don't wait for the seatbelt sign to tell you when it's safe. Your circulation doesn't care about turbulence. Fifth, if you're already on the plane and your seat feels dangerously tight, speak up. Tell a flight attendant this. I have a medical concern about sitting in this seat for the full flight. Is there any available seating with more room? Airlines have internal discretion to reseat passengers, especially when health is involved. The worst they can say is no, but you'd be surprised how often they say yes. Now I want to zoom out for a moment because there's a bigger story here that affects every single one of us. As of right now, in 2026, there is no federal minimum seat size on any commercial airplane in the United States. None. Not for width, not for legroom, not for the space between your armrests. Congress told the FAA to address this back in 2018 as part of the FAA Reauthorization Act. They directed the agency to study the issue and set minimum standards. The FAA ran their tests, excluded anyone over 64 from the simulations, and concluded there was no safety problem. An appeals court later ruled the FAA isn't even required to set minimums. So, the agency that's supposed to protect you in the air looked at the evidence, ignored the people most at risk, and walked away. When the FAA opened a public comment period asking Americans what they thought about seat sizes, more than 26,000 people responded. Hundreds of them used the same word to describe the experience of flying economy: torture. Passengers described being wedged into rows so tight they couldn't reach the floor. Parents wrote that they told their children to climb over seats during an emergency because the aisles would be blocked by passengers physically stuck in place, and still nothing changed. But that doesn't mean nothing can change. Advocacy groups like Flyers' Rights are still fighting for minimum seat standards. Senators have introduced new legislation pushing the FAA to conduct fair and inclusive testing. And every single time a passenger speaks up, writes a comment, shares a story, or demands better, it gets harder for the industry to pretend the problem doesn't exist. That includes you. You've spent a lifetime earning the right to see the world comfortably and safely. Don't let anyone quietly shrink that away from you without a fight. So, which of these tips are you going to try on your next flight? Have you noticed your seat getting smaller over the years? Drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your story. And if this video helped you, share it with a friend or family member over 60 who flies. Give it a like, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.